In a blow to Labour, Angela Rayner is due to face a police probe over breaching electoral law and avoiding capital gains tax. The saga, which has run for weeks, will now be properly investigated, whilst Labour have kept a brave face insisting they are fully confident their deputy leader has obeyed the law. Joining me in the studio is Communications Director of the Henry Jackson Society, Megan Guitos, Editor of Spiked Online, Tom Slater, and Telegraph columnist Madeline Grant. Tom, Starmer thought this would blow over, didn't he? And yet, here we are, weeks later, it's still rolling.
Absolutely. After weeks and weeks and weeks of saying this is a non-story, it's still a story. It's becoming a bigger story because the police are actually properly investigating this now. I think it's just a reminder of how you've got to kind of live by... If you live by the sword, you die by the sword. The Labour Party have spent so much energy in recent years going after the Tories over some of their members' tax affairs, going after them over whether or not they broke lockdown rules, in some cases going after them because Rishi Sunak was caught not wearing a seatbelt once. And so now it's very easy for this to be weaponised against them. I don't like this way in which both parties are constantly reporting the other one to the police. I don't think that's a good use of police time, nor is it particularly edifying. But at the same time, you can't say that they're not getting a taste of their own medicine on this one.
Snitches get stitches, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Madeline, 12 bobbies on this case. If I go out to my local co-op, because they're the ones who are most hit on the high street, and I steal a chicken tikka masala for the microwave dinner tonight, 12 cops are not going to come around looking for me. Why are 12 coppers investigating this?
That was my first thought when I heard 12. I thought, what are they all doing? it's like one of them's making coffee, the other's like printing off stuff, like an interning for the other 10 cops or whatever. I mean, I don't understand, but I think there's a sense of like what you get from the police is either massively underwhelming, literally nothing happens, you get something nicked. I've had friends recently where things have been stolen because of the wonders of modern technology. They can track exactly where their stolen iPhone is going. And you give all of that to the police, and then 3 weeks later you get a Weasley text saying, oh, we've looked into this, sorry, we can't do anything. Or else it's like you do the most minor thing and, you know, you have like 12 officers at your throat, or like for tweeting the wrong thing, or indeed for investigating what, you know, may have been a breaking of electoral law or perhaps underpaying of tax, but that doesn't seem to require such a massive team.
Yeah, and Rayner has said if she's broken the law, she'll resign. So, Megan, is that enough? Should it be case closed for now?
I don't like it when politicians say this and then they make the police a kind of, like, willing participant in the political football. However, with the 12 bobbies, I have to assume that if it's 12, police have more than one investigation going at more than one time, because surely 12.
Yeah.
What would they all be doing?
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, I think, like you said, live by the sword, die by the sword. I think for a lot of people this is just a case of modern political hypocrisy. And I don't think it's going to be enough. I think people will keep going. I think this would have died away for a few people, but with Angela Rayner being the attack dog... yeah, I think it might be a little more difficult for her.
But who looks worse in this? Sorry, that sounded a bit cockney. Who looks worse in this? Angela Rayner or the Tories? Because the Tories who have put the pressure on the popo, that's what the kids call them. I'm pretty down with them. The Tories put the pressure on the popo. The police felt they had to reopen this investigation. They've now got 12 bobbies. For me, this is a waste of police time. It's a waste of police resources. That's the Tories' fault. That ain't Angela Rayner's fault.
It is, but she's the story now. I think that no one's going to remember the Tory party chairman, I forget who it is this week, who was...
James Daly,
there we go.
Teacher.
Thank you very much. No one's going to remember James Daly, you know, writing to Greater Manchester Police and instigating this. She's going to be on the front page. And there's a big problem for Labour just because of the fact that she was going to be seen as so central to their local election campaign. Unlike Keir Starmer, very much does have the common touch, does have some way of connecting with people. So I think it is going to, whatever the rights and wrongs of it, and I think we're all more or less in agreement this is probably a overreaction late in the day from the police, and we shouldn't have really gone down this road in the first place. It has panned out worse for Labour in this case, I think.
But isn't this is just it, isn't it? This is the Tories just see her as someone they need to take down because she's decent. People listen to her. She's much better than Keith Starmer. I'm calling him Keith because I don't respect him. That's why I'm calling him Keith, not Keir. So isn't this just the Tories going after someone who they think is going to do damage to them long term?
I think so. And I think in that sense it does look very...
petty.
It looks very petty. It also looks desperate. I mean, they don't have a lot of natural campaigners themselves on their side. But it's worked for now. That's the grim reality of it, I think.
So, Madeline, Sunak joined in today at PMQ's bashing bashing Starmer, essentially, saying that he should spend less time reading Liz Truss's new book and focus on Deputy Leader Angela Rayner's tax advice. Fair comment. This is one of our former top prosecutors. He hasn't even looked at the evidence himself yet. A little bit strange.
I know. And this is the other thing. This is the other element of live by the sword, because, you know, I'm sure your viewers probably have better things to do than watch PMQs every week, but it's my job, so I have to, and it's rubbish. I wish sometimes the lines would change, but they never do. But one of the things that routinely crops up is Starmer invoking his time as Director of Public Prosecutions.
Yes.
And other members of his team, when they're interviewed, they say, he's so forensic, he's across everything, he's on top of the details. So the idea that he wouldn't have found time to read the tax advice, his line has been, I haven't seen it, but members of my team have. You think he might have found, like, you know, 5 minutes in the day between being very forensic in other ways to maybe, like, read the 2 pages or whatever of tax advice? I mean, just saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Megan, if it's not the Tories attacking Starmer, it's his own MPs. Reg Duffield basically calling the geezer a coward and saying, where were you when I was saying all that stuff about the trans debate and you were off hiding?
Yeah, I actually had this conversation with someone recently that
Keir Starmer's a coward?
That currently,
no.
It's the momentum crowd. They're actually the loudest critics of Starmer, and I don't think sometimes on panel shows such as this one or alternative ones on different
This is more
channels.
than just a panel show, mate, all right? There's a lot more to the show than just a panel.
Dictatorship.
It's a dictatorship, exactly.
You have certain left-wing media types that you'd expect them to be very critical of the Tories, but they actually spend a lot of their time saying, and this is why Keir Starmer's bad, he flip-flops, he's not very principled. And, you know, we knew that Rosie Duffield was going to make this case, and I think she makes a very strong one. She was not bullied out, but she was bullied horrendously for many years. And, you know, she's a survivor of domestic abuse. She's championed women's rights, and I think she feels very betrayed by her own party.
But, Madeline, Starmer has been cowardly when it comes to the trans debate. He could barely say what a woman is.
Yeah. And I think that was really opportunism or spinelessness, because I think he knows perfectly well what a woman is. I don't think that he truly believes this stuff, but he does tend to go whichever way the prevailing wind is blowing. And this is one of those issues where, you know, I think that when it comes to the next general election, this is not top of the public priorities list. People are much more concerned about the economy, the NHS, and they absolutely despise the Conservative Party at the moment. So I don't think it will make a huge difference, but it does definitely tell you something about the man, about the judgment, and about the, I think, lack of being able to hold firm against a kind of trendy ideology or perhaps some particularly loud voices within his own party and do the right thing.
Let's move on to another story. Tom, Farage has been back in Brussels, back in his old stomping ground, but he's been silenced.
Yes, this was a crazy story that was breaking earlier this week, where at this national conservatism conference where Farage was speaking, actually while he was speaking, the Belgian police rush in and say that the event has to be closed down. I think they eventually kind of relented and allowed the people who were still there to carry on, but the doors were bolted, speakers couldn't come in. I understand that this morning they actually managed to kind of win a legal case to overturn that order that had been issued to them to shut it down. But it basically seems that a kind of game of whack-a-mole was going on with this conference. Originally, the mayor of all of Brussels wanted to shut it down, put pressure on the venue. That didn't work. Then the kind of mayors of the separate kind of municipalities in the city were trying to, and then eventually the one actually succeeded, actually sent in the police to shut this down. And whatever you think of some of the speakers who were there, I know that Suella Braverman was also there, also various kind of conservative to quite radical right figures. This is a matter of freedom of speech. These people should be allowed to hold their conference, and if people disagree with them, they should show up and tell them why they disagree with them. I don't know why this is always the reflex. And the fact that the police were sent in, that just makes it so much more sinister to me.
Yeah, but Cruella Braverman, I did say Cruella Braverman, she wanted to ban people from freedom of speech, didn't she, on our streets of London? She didn't want people to go out and protest for the pro-Palestine. And yet here she is saying that she shouldn't have those same rules applied to her.
I mean, the Tories have been really inconsistent on matters of freedom and liberal values. I mean, look at their kind of crackdowns on protests, which really began with the lockdown, and then it kind of continued on under the guise of going after Extinction Rebellion. So in some ways, they haven't got a leg to stand on. But at the same time, I think we could point out hypocrisy all day. It's still, none of these restrictions should exist. And I think that's the thing that's worth.
Well, you know what, you guys, Megan, Tom, Madeline, you are always welcome in this independent republic to say whatever you want.